In this episode, we're going to talk about the most common data types you're going to be working with in PowerShell. So what do I mean by a data type? Well, somebody had explained to the computer what an integer is. Now, an integer is a number that cannot have a decimal or a fractional value. It is a whole number. We also have other data types that can have decimal point values. We have data types that can handle characters. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at each one of the, I'll call them the main data types or the primary data types that you're going to come across in PowerShell. So as you're going through documentation and you see these data types being used, you understand what they mean. The first data type we're going to look at is a string. Now, a string is nothing more than characters. So here I'm going to create a variable called string1. I'm going to assign it some characters that are inside quotations. And when you do that in PowerShell, it automatically becomes data type string. So PowerShell knows that this represents just a bunch of characters. Now you can force a variable to only hold a specific data type, and we call that casting. Here I'm casting variable string2 to only hold data type string. Now I'm assigning it nothing. $null or money null, as some people pronounce it, essentially says nothing. But let's see what happens when we run this. Variable string2 can only hold data type string. Let's take a look at an integer. Here I'm creating a variable, I'm just calling it int1 and assigning a number to it. Now this is a number without any decimal value, and by default PowerShell turns that into a 32-bit integer. Now what I mean by 32-bit integer, that means that there is so many bits allocated to store this value, in this case 32 bits. So a 32-bit integer has both a minimum value, which is going to be negative, and a positive value for its maximum value. So one of those bits, of the 16, one of those bits is dedicated to saying if this is a positive number or a negative number. This is called a signed integer. Now because of this, you only have 15 bits to represent that number. We also have unsigned integers as well. Now an unsigned integer is going to be just a normal integer, but its minimum value is 0, and all 16 bits are used for counting. So unsigned means you can only have a positive number, but a signed integer can have both positive and negative values. But what if we need a number with a decimal value? That data type is called double. Here I'm creating a variable called double1 and I'm assigning it the value 1.1. When I ask PowerShell what type of data is stored in variable double, it is system.double. Now double of course has both minimum and maximum values. Now there are other types of integers and non-integer numerical values that can hold different sizes of numbers. So actually in the next episode I'm going to show you some of these extra special data types just in case you need them. Let's talk about time. So a datetime object is what you get when you use the PowerShell command like getDate, and this holds a datetime object. A datetime object represents a point in time. Now I really like this because of the methods that are included with the datetime object. Because if I need to take a current timestamp and add so many days or remove so many years, that can be a little hard to program. But if we use the methods, for example, the add days method, here I'm going to say, hey, PowerShell, tell me what is 100 days from today, or let's remove 30 years from this date time instance. And PowerShell is going to do all the calculations for you so you don't have to write all the code to do it yourself. The final data type we're going to talk about is Boolean. Boolean is either true or false. That's it. It's either true or false. So let's take a look at some code so that you can see where we're going to be using these data types. I'm going to run the command get sim instance, and I'm going to ask for all the information from the sim operating system class. So you can see that this gave us an object with a lot of properties. Now to interpret some of these properties though, I need to take a look at their values, and I can see, okay, we've got some numbers, we've got some date time, we maybe looks like some string. Let's go to the documentation of sim underscore operating system and see how these particular properties are being represented to us. So we're at the documentation online for sim underscore operating system. I'm going to scroll down to the syntax portion, and this is where we're going to start seeing those data types. Like for example here, the caption is being presented as data type string. All right, the current time zone is being presented as a signed 16-bit integer. And here we have, let's see, the number of licensed users, and we can see it's an unsigned 32-bit integer. Understanding the type of data that you're working with can prevent you from making some mistakes. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next episode.